Fourth Way by P.D. Ouspensky. Chapter 16. Question. What is the difference between the theory of reincarnation and the theory of recurrence? Answer. The idea of reincarnation is a kind of adaptation of the idea of recurrence to our ordinary understanding, because as a theory, the idea of recurrence is much more difficult for us. It needs quite a new understanding of time. Even educated people need a certain amount of mathematical knowledge to understand the idea of return. Recurrence is in eternity, but reincarnation is in time. It supposes that time exists apart from us, and that we continue to exist in this time after death. For instance, in Buddhism, they take it that a man dies and is immediately born again, so that one life follows another, because this is easier to understand for ordinary people. But we have no evidence of the existence of time beyond our life. Time is life for each person, and it includes in itself all time, so that when life ends, time ends. So reincarnation is less scientific theory than recurrence. Too much is taken for granted. Question. But where do all these lives take place? Answer. We do not speak about the place, but about the recurrence. If you say that you remember that you lived in Rome, for instance, how can you find proof? It is impossible. So each theory can exist on different planes. The theory of recurrence can exist on a certain plane which requires a certain knowledge and a certain understanding, and then it can be distorted and brought down to lower and lower planes. This can happen with every theory, and sometimes in the process it can even become its own opposite. But you must always remember that we cannot prove anything, and we cannot insist on any particular theory. Only we must understand each theory within its own limits and its own cycle, and see what is possible and what is impossible from the point of view of this theory. If you take a theory and you proceed to add one thing and take away another, that would be wrong. In each theory, one must study what it includes, and nothing must be omitted. So if we find a theory that is philosophically possible, we can look for conditions in which it would cease to be a theory and would become a fact. Question. Am I wrong in assuming that you yourself are not convinced in the reality of the theory of eternal recurrence? Answer. I tried to explain that you cannot be convinced of these theories. If you think you can be convinced, it will be just belief. There are a whole series of questions and problems about which all we can do is form theories. Without ever being really convinced of one theory, without ever really being convinced that one theory is better than another. As a theory, I would say that the theory of recurrence is better than the theory of reincarnation, but we have no real evidence as to whether it is nearer to facts or not. We cannot have evidence because of our state of consciousness. The only possibility from the point of view of work is to hope that perhaps if we change our state of consciousness, our possibilities of observation will increase. In our present state, we can have nothing but theories about such things. We are limited by the state of our being, and by the state and being of man, 1, 2, and 3, is such that we cannot know these things for certain. Question. Did you say that one could not possibly remember a former life? Answer. Yes. Only essence can remember, and since in ordinary man, essence is unorganized and not separated from personality, we do not remember. At the same time, the fact that one person has one kind of essence and another has another kind is one of the strongest arguments for pre-existence, because essence cannot be born out of nothing. It is too definite, but the system takes man only from birth to death. Question: where does the part of us which recurs come from? Answer: it is you. When we speak about recurrence, we think about our own recurrence. Where this part comes from, we do not know, and we can spend our whole life on theoretical definitions, but it will not change anything or help our psychological understanding of the idea. I am now trying to establish certain principles which will give us a practical understanding of it. We could find many words, but words will not lead anywhere. Have you found the answer why C influences cannot be wasted? Think about that. If you answer this question, you will answer many other questions. And this you do know. Put 2 and 2 together. Question: is it because if such a thing would be liable to recur again and again, you waste it? Answer: this is implied, but it is not the answer. Certainly, if it is wasted and again wasted, what is the use? But there is something you do not see in all of this, and yet it is the key to the whole thing. It's very simple. There is nothing mysterious. It's not a puzzle. It's merely a question of thinking. Try to think like this. Take an ordinary school. A boy goes to school and every year begins to learn the same thing. He studies something for the whole year. Then he goes home and forgets everything. He has to learn the same thing all over again. Again, he studies it for a whole year, and again he goes home and he forgets. And again he comes back and he learns the same thing. What will they say to him at school? This is why schools are not repeated. There are no recurrence for schools. Let me read this sentence again. This is why schools are not repeated, why there is no recurrence for schools. And this is what people want. They want to learn. And this is what people want. They want to learn the same thing again. But next time, you must be in a higher school. If you cannot go to higher school, there will be no other school on this level because you have already passed it. Question: would you meet a school through C influence? Answer: school means C influence. You meet the school through B influences. Question: you cannot go into a higher class unless you pass an examination? Answer: quite right, but you can pass the examination and forget everything. It happens very often. Question: but to a certain extent, you have learned how to learn. Answer: sometimes, and sometimes not. You learn how to learn, and you learn how to forget. Question: seems to me, from what you have said, that this C influence is transmutation, the power of transmutation, and anything less than that is not C influence. Answer: quite right. You are very near, but you can also take C influence simply as a certain amount of knowledge. Question: knowledge that can be used? Answer: no. That again is a definition. I said knowledge. Definitions will not help. It is strange that you do not see it, that you do not catch what it means simply. Transmission of knowledge means C influence. It means a certain work. It does not happen by itself. It means somebody's work, and somebody's work cannot be wasted. If it brings results, it can be continued, but if it brings no results, then naturally it will stop. This explains why the possibility of recurrence must be limited. If one comes to a school and does not profit by being in the school, naturally one cannot come again and again to learn the same thing. One must make something of it. Try to understand it, because without understanding these principles, it is impossible to speak about recurrence. All ordinary talks, based on mathematics or anything else, make it too uniform, and recurrence cannot be uniform. You remember we spoke about materiality of knowledge, and about the fact that one has very little chance even to begin, because many favorable circumstances are necessary for that. But you must understand that when one begins to get a certain knowledge, chances become smaller and smaller, because if one does not use it, it will be more and more difficult to get, quite naturally. And the same thing applies to every day, every year, to all our life. This is what must be understood. The idea of recurrence is useful because it refers to this life. If we do not do something today, how can we expect to do it tomorrow? If we can do it today, we must. Nobody can put off till tomorrow. Nobody can put it off till tomorrow, because tomorrow we could do something else. We always think we have time. Question: does it mean that if we do not listen to what you say today, we will not hear it again? Answer: or maybe you will be here, but I will not be here. How can you know? Question: can we only make progress through you? Answer: no, you are quite free to find some other place. You are not bound at all. If you know somebody else with whom you can make progress, certainly you must use him. One must not lose any opportunity if one has an opportunity. Question: are you the only medium here? Answer: no, nobody can be the only one. If you know another way, there is another opportunity, but if you do not know of any opportunity, if you know nobody but me, then you must try to get it from me. If you know somebody else, you can get it from somebody else. Is that quite clear? Only remember one thing: I cannot be a theoretical study. We must learn and practice how to do the most important things for us. Question: are opportunities always there, only we are too asleep to notice or to use them? Answer: opportunities may be different. There are different degrees. If one has not come to the work, one has the opportunity to accumulate knowledge, material, tendencies. They may not be very strong, but they may all lead in the same direction, or they may lead in the opposite direction. Then, in what we call work, which means influence C, or direct knowledge, direct study, opportunities are different, and real opportunities begin only from the moment one uses them. Question: is the idea of recurrence, in the idea of recurrence, things happen again, but do schools necessarily appear in the same place? Perhaps in my last recurrence, this system never came to England? Answer: this is the difficulty about recurrence, because when people hear about it and begin to think, they think in the ordinary formatory, that is, logical way, or very often they think quite illogically, or worse. But even if they think logically, they have not enough material. They do not know enough to think about it. It is necessary to understand, first of all, that We are speaking about a theory, and secondly, that this theory must be sufficiently full. There must be sufficient material in it. When we think about recurrence, we think about everything. We think that everything repeats, and this is exactly what spoils our approach to it. The first thing to understand about recurrence is that it is not eternal. It sounds absurd, but actually it is so, because it is so different in different cases. Even if we take it theoretically, if we take purely people in mechanical life, even their lives change. Only certain people in quite frozen conditions of life have their lives repeating in exactly the same way, maybe for a long time. In other cases, even in ordinary mechanical life, things change. If people are not so definitely governed by circumstances, like great men who have to be great men again, and nobody can do anything about it, there are variations. But again, not forever. Never think that anything is forever. It is a very strange thing, but it seems as though people who have no possibilities, either owing to certain conditions or to their own insufficient development or to some pathological state, can have their lives repeating without any particular change. Whereas, in the case of people with theoretical possibility, their lives can reach certain points at which they either meet with some possibility of development or they begin to go down. It is either one or the other. They cannot go on remaining as ever, forever in the same place. And from the moment they meet with some real possibility, they either recognize the possibility of doing something or they lose it and then go down. Just think about it, and perhaps you'll be able to formulate some questions.